It was an ordinary Tuesday afternoon when everything in my life flipped upside down. I was sitting at the kitchen table, sipping coffee, scrolling absent-mindedly through my phone when I noticed the mail pile on the counter. Bills, ads, junk. But one envelope stood out. It was official-looking, a thick, cream-colored envelope with a bank logo I didn't recognize. I furrowed my brow. I hadn't opened any new accounts or made any financial moves lately. Curious, I slid my finger under the flap and pulled out the papers. The first thing I saw was, "Congratulations, your $20,000 loan has been approved." I felt my stomach drop. My name was there. Full name, address, even my social security number. But I never applied for this. My hands trembled as I flipped through the paperwork, heart racing faster with each page. There were signatures. My signature. But I knew, without a doubt, I never signed anything. Panic set in. I grabbed my phone and dialed Jack, my husband. He picked up on the second ring. "Hey, babe," he said casually. "Jack," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Did you open a loan in my name?" There was a long pause. Too long. Finally, he answered, "What? No. Why would I do that?" But his tone was off. Not surprised, not concerned. Just flat. I explained the letter, reading the details aloud. Jack was silent on the other end. Then, after a beat, he said, "Maybe it's a mistake. I'm sure it's nothing." Nothing? My heart pounded in my chest. I tried to shake it off, but all evening, the nagging feeling in my gut grew stronger. Jack sat beside me on the couch, watching TV, but his leg bounced nervously, and his eyes kept flicking toward me. Later, while he was in the shower, I slipped into our home office. I told myself I was just being paranoid, but something inside me wouldn't let it go. I rifled through the drawer where we kept important documents. Tax returns, old bills, insurance papers. And that's when I found it. A folder I didn't recognize. Inside, loan documents. Signed, dated, stamped. All in my name. But I had never touched them. I felt the room spin. My chest tightened, and I had to remind myself to breathe. When Jack came out, towel around his waist, I was waiting, holding the folder. "Jack," I whispered, voice shaking. "What is this?" His eyes flicked to the papers, and I saw it. That brief flash of guilt before he masked it. He exhaled slowly, running, a hand through his wet hair. "Mom was desperate," he finally said, almost in a whisper. I froze. My mother-in-law, the woman who had always smiled sweetly at me, who sent me birthday cards, who called me her favorite daughter-in-law. Jack avoided my eyes. She needed help. She was drowning in debt. I thought we could handle it quietly. I felt like the floor had been pulled out from under me. Quietly? He was planning to hide this from me? In that moment, I realized the man I thought I knew, my husband, had been keeping secrets. And my perfect little world, it had just started to crack apart. Jack sat across from me at the kitchen table, his head in his hands, his fingers raking through his hair. I waited, arms crossed, heart pounding, a knot tightening in my stomach. Just let me explain," he finally said, his voice small. "Explain what, Jack?" I snapped, holding up the folder of loan papers. "That you let your mother steal my identity? That you hid it from me?" He winced. It wasn't supposed to be like this. And then piece by piece, the truth spilled out. His mother, Linda, had been struggling for years. Maxed out credit cards, overdue bills, mounting repairs on her house. Jack had tried to help. Small cash transfers, paying 1 or 2 bills here, And there, but we didn't have the money to cover everything. So she came up with another solution, Jack whispered, not meeting my eyes. I stared at him, cold disbelief washing over me. She forged my signature. She said she'd pay it back before you ever found out, Jack rushed to explain. I didn't know she'd go through with it. I thought I could stop it or help somehow or... You let her do this, I said, my voice trembling. He looked crushed. I didn't know what to do. I felt trapped. But I could see it in his eyes. He had known. And he hadn't stopped her. That was the worst part. It wasn't just the money. It was the betrayal. The fact that the man I trusted, most had been complicit in this, had kept this from me, had chosen silence over honesty. I buried my face in my hands, trying to steady my breath. My mind raced. What were my legal options? Could I go to the bank and tell them it was forged? Would they believe me? Would they believe us? Jack reached for my hand, but I pulled away. The money's gone, isn't it? I asked softly. He nodded. She paid off the credit cards, fixed some stuff around her house. It's all gone. I let out a shaky laugh, the kind you make when you're teetering on the edge of fury and heartbreak. That night, I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, Jack quietly snoring beside me. My thoughts spun in circles. Lawyers, police, bank fraud departments. But beneath all the practical questions was something rawer, deeper. I was hurt. Not just by Linda, but by Jack. How long had he been keeping this secret? How many other things had he hidden from me? Could I even trust him anymore? I didn't have answers yet. But one thing was clear. This wasn't just about money. It was about betrayal. And the cracks in our marriage were just starting to show. The next morning, I barely touched my coffee. My hands trembled as I grabbed my purse and keys. Jack watched, me from the doorway, his eyes pleading. Please don't make this worse, he murmured. But I was done waiting. I drove straight to Linda's house. The house looked the same as always, the neat garden, the blue curtains in the window, but everything about it felt different now. My heart pounded as I rang the doorbell. Linda opened the door, her face lighting up in surprise. Oh, honey, come in, come in. I stepped inside stiffly, ignoring her warm greeting. We need to talk. She led me to the living room, where a cup of tea was already waiting on the table. She motioned for me to sit, but I remained standing. I know about the loan, I said, my voice tight. Linda didn't flinch. She just smiled softly. Your family, she said, as if that explained everything. I knew you'd understand. We're in this together. For a moment, I was too stunned to speak. Understand? I finally managed. You forged my name. You ruined my credit. You committed a crime. Her smile faded. Her eyes hardened. I did what I had to do. My house was falling apart. The credit card companies were threatening to sue. I was drowning. Jack knew. He wanted to help. But you two didn't have the money. I clenched my fists. So you stole it from me? Linda rose from her seat slowly. You're overreacting, dear. It's just money. We'll pay it back. I felt a wave of anger surge through me. No, this isn't just money. It's fraud. I'm considering going to the police. That's when her expression truly changed. Her mouth tightened into a thin line, and her eyes turned cold. If you do that, she said slowly, you'll destroy this family. I stared at her. Jack will never forgive you, she added, her voice sharper now. He'll hate you for tearing us apart. Think carefully about what you're doing. My heart thudded painfully in my chest. This wasn't just about money. This was emotional manipulation, plain and simple. I left the house without another word. When I got home, Jack was waiting. He rushed to me, grabbing my hands. "Did you go to her? What did she say? Please don't press charges. We can fix this. We can figure it out." I pulled away. "It's not just about the money, Jack," I said quietly. "It's about trust. You knew. You let this happen. And now you want me to clean up the mess." Jack's face crumbled. "Please." But I couldn't answer. For the first time in our marriage, I felt completely, utterly alone. The following morning, I sat in the lawyer's office, hands clenched tightly in my lap. The room smelled faintly of old books and coffee. I felt small sitting across from him, a woman whose life had been turned upside down by people she loved. The lawyer, Mr. Daniels, was patient, calm. He laid out the facts clearly. Yes, the loan was fraud. Yes, it could be reported. The bank would launch an investigation, and it would most likely press charges against Linda. I could technically try to handle the debt myself, but legally, it was not my responsibility. I listened carefully, heart pounding. "Can my husband be charged too?" I asked softly. Mr. Daniels hesitated. "If he knowingly allowed this to happen, there's a possibility. But that depends on the investigation." I swallowed hard. I had asked Jack to come to the meeting. I needed him to show up, to stand beside me, to face what we were going through as a team. But he hadn't come. He had texted me instead. "Please don't make this worse. We can fix it ourselves. Don't drag Mom into this." Sitting alone in that office, I realized something painful. Jack wasn't going to stand by me. He was going to stand by her. I drove home in silence. When I walked through the door, Jack was sitting on the couch, head in his hands. He looked up at me, eyes red, desperate. "Did you go through with it?" he asked. I set my bag down quietly. "I'm going to report it." His face twisted in disbelief. "You're really going to ruin this family over money?" I felt something in me snap. "It's not just money, Jack," I shouted, surprising both of us. "It's my name, my future, my trust in you." He stood abruptly, pacing. "You're overreacting. We can work it out. Pay it off slowly. Why are you doing this?" Tears blurred my vision. "Because you didn't protect me. Because you knew, and you let it happen. And because you're still trying to cover for her instead of standing by me." Jack shook his head, grabbed a bag from the corner, and started stuffing clothes into it. "Fine," he muttered. "If you're going to turn your back on us, I'm done." I stood frozen, watching him walk out the door. The next morning, I filed the report. The bank launched its investigation, and formal charges were prepared against Linda. It was one of the hardest choices of my life. But as I sat alone in my quiet house that evening, I realized something important. Love isn't just about standing by someone's side. It's about knowing they'll stand by yours. And for the first time in a long time, I knew I deserved better.